Coming up towards 7:36 in Trinidad and Tobago. It's also 7:36 in Guyana, where we're headed to for our next discussion. And by the way, a special good morning to all our listeners and viewers in Guyana, because during the time of the election issues, we had quite a bit of viewership with the toing and froing between the incumbents at the time and the challengers, and that went on. And a good morning, and a very early good morning as well, depending on where you are in the United States, because we also have quite a few viewers there who really were enjoying our Parang segment, our authentic Parang segment from last Friday. So you could look forward to that continuing for the next couple of Fridays, at least until the season is over. And we'll have a canister of oxygen sent to one of our guests who almost couldn't breathe because she was so nervous during the course of it. Hopefully she'll calm down by this Friday coming, that we can have a discussion. But we really appreciate you all being with us, wherever you are in the world, following us here on Morning Edition. So let's go to Guyana. Because last week, Acting Chief Justice Roxanne George Wilshire placed a hold on an order by Magistrate Sherdal Marcus Isaacs to deport 26 Haitians back to their homeland. The stay granted followed an application by Attorney at Law Darren Wade in the Georgetown High Court. Wade had filed a fixed date application which seeks to invoke sections of the fundamental rights provision of the Constitution of the Republic of Guyana. The government is arguing that Haiti does not fall into any of the territories covered under the Constitution, adding that Haiti has not signed on to the free movement aspect of the Caribbean Single Market and Economy Program under CARICOM. Well, Attorney Darren Wade, who did his degree here in Trinidad and Tobago, he's been a practicing attorney for the last 5 years. He is in Georgetown at his office, and he's representing the 26 Haitians. Good morning to you, Mr. Wade. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning to you, Mr. Mohammed, and your listeners, and thank you for having me on your program this morning.
You're more than welcome. Just if you can, and I know for just imagine you're doing your summation, not arguing before the court, but arguing before our audience. So make it as concise as possible. Exactly what is the issue here regarding these 26 Haitians?
Well, thank you. The 26 Haitian nationals arrived in Guyana on the 7th of November, and they were granted lawful entry into the jurisdiction of Guyana. A few hours after, they were all arrested by the police, by the Guyana police force, and taken into custody for deportation. The hotels where the Haitians were staying had several nationalities. They were Cuban nationals, they were Venezuelans, and so forth. However, they were targeted by the Guyana police force and placed into detention. They were there for approximately 20 days before we would have approached the court. The Guyana Constitution makes it clear that, like many other Caribbean constitutions, that if someone is in custody for 72 hours, they are unlawful. And if you want to extend that 72 hours, you must approach the courts. They were never taken before the court to extend that extension, to be granted that extension. After I would have filed a habeas corpus application, the police would have approached the magistrate court, Madam Sherdal Isaacs, for the deportation orders, and those orders were granted. I must say to you and to the entire Trinidad and Tobago and to all your listeners, the Haitians were not taken before the court. That is also a violation of their constitutional rights, because one has a right to be heard, and that is also part of natural justice.
Before you continue, Mr. Wade, if you allow me to ask, you said they arrived in the country on November the 7th. Was their arrival perfectly legal? Did they come through some back door? Were the authorities fully aware, and their passports were stamped and so on, that they had arrived into the country illegally? What I'm trying to ask is, did they arrive with the intention of seeking refuge or staying beyond their allotted time?
Well, what I could speak to is that they arrived perfectly lawful. They came with return ticket. Everything was in perfect order.
So why then were they arrested? What is the reason for them being arrested within hours of arrival?
First, the Minister of Home Affairs, which is similar to your Minister of National Security in Trinidad, would have stated out there they are suspect to be trafficking victims and so forth. But after I filed a habeas corpus application, then the attorney representing the state would have made it clear that they are there for deportation. I must mention, though, that the Haitian issue has been one that has been a topical issue in Guyanese society. When the North government was in opposition, they had a fear that Haitian nationals are coming to Guyana to vote for the North opposition whilst they're in government. So it's not a problem quite clearly if you were from, as was stated by the Attorney General before the Madam Chief Justice Roxanne George, if you're from a Commonwealth country, let us say, for example, Guyana, we have a lot of migrants or immigrants rather from countries such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, and so forth that are part of the Commonwealth. His argument is that Haitians are not the human rights, the fundamental rights provision, as you rightfully stated, of the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana are not available to Haitians because they are not Commonwealth citizens. So it's very sad. So what the Attorney General in effect is saying is that the government could discriminate, they could breach, they could contravene Haitian national human rights, and there could be no consequence. However, the Chief Justice did not think it's so. Well, of course, the matter is still before her, but she would have granted a conservatory order, despite of those pronouncements, despite of the objections by the Attorney General to the conservatory order.
So just as we could understand it, what is their status right now? Are they to be deported? Has the deportation been stayed while the matter is going through the courts? What is the situation?
That is correct. The deportation has been stayed until the finality of the matter. However, we would have also asked the court, by virtue of Articles 211 and Articles 214 of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, to refer this matter as it relates to issues of free movement to the Caribbean Court of Justice in Port to Spain for application and interpretation of the said treaty.
Mr. Wade, I'm hesitating to bring it up, but I'm just wondering if this is an issue of ethnicity and whether or not it is a situation that has unfortunately highlighted once again the very strong ethnic division in Guyana.
Certainly, I was on a program similar to this last night, and with Dr. David Hines from the university in the United States there, and that was his view. It's a matter of ethnicity, it's a matter of trust, that the balancing of the race, because these are Asian nationals, they are black people coming to Guyana, and they may, if they stay here and they have rights to vote and so forth, they acquired citizenship and so forth, they are going to support the current opposition, the PNC or the APNU opposition. So you will not see an Indian national or Bangladesh national being treated the way the Asians are being treated. That is a reality. That's in the context of Guyanese politics. And this is not only the Asian nationals that have been treated poorly. There are also issues since this government got into power of Afro-Guyanese crying out for ethnic cleansing and so forth. I would have read a report of close to 1,000 Guyanese being fired from the job since the PPP government got into power. So that is also an issue. And those points, for example, there are two permanent secretaries who were removed from the position of permanent secretary, who were permanent employees, and create a office whereby they have no responsibility at all, and place somebody who the PPP believe they are comfortable with and who they could work with.
And therefore, Mr. Wade, I must
part of what the
I must ask you this question then. Are you a supporter of the PNC, APNU, AFC, and have actively campaigned on behalf of the former government?
Yes, I must admit, at the last election, I was one of the candidates for the APNUFC. However, I am not a member of parliament. I have no office on behalf of the APNUFC.
So doesn't that compromise that position, because you clearly have an axe to grind with the government of the day? Doesn't that compromise the validity of your argument?
Well, I wouldn't say it compromises. I think the arguments are solid, but one may also want to take into consideration, as you rightly would have mentioned, for the sake of transparency, for my status to be stated as in relation to my position with the government and the opposition. But I'm talking factual stuff here. I'm not lying. I have several matters before the court that I'm fighting on behalf of persons who were terminated, contracts were terminated as soon as the PPP government went into office. It was made plain by the Minister of Governance, Madam Gail Shira, that if they are of the view that you are political employee, quote-unquote political employee, you cannot work with this current administration. The Attorney General would have said that when you're fired, if you have any problem, file a court action.
And given this situation, this what appears to be a very toxic environment, Mr. Wade, and because it involves these Haitian nationals as well, what is the best outcome? Do you think that the deportation orders will be revoked, that they will be allowed to stay? How do you see this situation playing out? And as you alluded to, there is the option of the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice, to which Guyana is prescribed, and shamefully Trinidad and Tobago is not, even though the CCJ is based in Port of Spain. Where does this matter go from here?
You mentioned East West Trinidad. I must make a slight correction there. Trinidad is a member of the CCJ in its original jurisdiction. The aspect of the CCJ that we asked the court to refer the matter to is the original jurisdiction that Trinidad is part of.
Okay. Thanks for that.
So in relation to where I see the matter going, you're most welcome. The aspect of the issues that we're asking to refer to the CCJ are the ones that are issues of the interpretation and application of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. Only the CCJ can do that. The local courts in the Caribbean, they have to stay proceeding and refer those aspects of the proceedings to the CCJ. So I expect the Chief Justice Raxon George to refer those issues to the CCJ pursuant to Article 211 and Article 214 of the said treaty. In relation to the issues domestically in Guyana, I believe the Haitians have strong cases as relates to the fundamental breach of the Constitution, despite the Attorney General arguing that they are not protected. The human rights provision of Guyana does not protect them. I believe there's no legal basis for that argument. The issue of discrimination, there are issues of inhumane and degrading punishment. Let me say this, that foodstuff and other eating persons in Guyana, both local Guyanese and overseas Guyanese, who are donating foodstuff, and you have to be taken to the detention center for the Haitians to be fed. And when they were arrested for it, they were made to sleep. They slept on the floor, the wooden floor of the CID headquarters here in Guyana. They have been treated terribly and inhumane.
And based on this, we just have a couple of minutes left, Mr. Wade. Based on the information, the way you have presented it, and I'm sure the Attorney General will want the right of reply, which we will certainly facilitate if that happens. But it does appear to be a clear case of discrimination based on ethnicity, the way you are presenting it. Are you confident, sir, that could stand up to scrutiny or to a counter point of view, whether from the Attorney General or anybody else on behalf of the government?
I'm sure it could stand up because, as I would have mentioned, when the hotel was searched, the Haitians, they were singled out. They were Cuban nationals. They were nationals from Venezuela in Guyana. Matter of fact, recently, a few Venezuelans were arrested. Later placed on station bail, despite being unlawful in Guyana. Why is it that we are doing this to Haitian nationals? We have nationalities in Guyana from all over the world. There have been recently an influx of nationalities from all over the world, but they are not being treated this way. As I would have mentioned before, if I could have sent you articles or you could research it on the internet, whereby the opposition, the current government was in opposition, and raised the issue of Haitians coming to Guyana to vote for the previous administration, that who many believed were removed from office, unlawfully removed from office, so, quote unquote. So there is facts, and it could be fact checked.
Mr. Wade, we have to leave it there.
And when the Attorney General is on air, I could come and be live with him also. I am prepared to do that. I'm prepared to debate the Attorney General on this issue.
Okay, Mr. Wade, we have to leave it there for the moment, but we thank you very much for taking the time to elaborate on this very vexing issue. We appreciate you taking the time, and we thank you very much for offering your perspective on this issue. Thank you very much once again. Attorney at Law Darren Wade, and indeed, he did respond, but because there's a bit of a delay, doesn't want to appear that he was very rude. He wasn't. He responded, but it's just a bit of a delay. By the way, just very quickly, for everybody who's saying that we wouldn't do that in Trinidad and Tobago, just remember in 1991, when it was suggested that there be Haitians allowed to seek refuge in Trinidad and Tobago in the time of the Patrick Manning PNM administration, go back and check the reaction then wheel and come again as to your own belief that we ain't going to do that here. Here's an image submitted by Pavel Kwame and captured at Damien Bay in Blanchisseuse. A beautiful image as well, Damien. Thank you very much for that one as we go to the break.